All right, let's get into it. Today, we're doing a sober, evidence-based assessment of Amazon Web Services and its place in the AI revolution. We're going to cut through all the marketing noise, look at the actual data, and figure out what their real competitive position is.
In this AI arms race, all the headlines are about Microsoft and Google. But the question any smart investor should be asking is, what about the 800-pound gorilla in the room? Where is AWS? They might seem quiet, but as the world's biggest cloud provider, their strategy is, well, it's absolutely critical. So how are they really set up to win?
To really get a clear picture, we're going to break this analysis down and answer two fundamental questions. First, does AWS actually offer the AI models that the market really wants to use? And second, are they supplying the AI chips that are so critical right now? The answers to these two questions, will they reveal the absolute core of their entire strategy?
Okay, so let's start with the models. AWS has taken a really distinct path here, one we can best describe as the AI supermarket strategy. And it's all built around their platform, Amazon Bedrock. So what exactly is Bedrock? Well, think of it less like a high-end boutique AI shop and more like a giant supermarket. It's one platform, one single API that gives you access to a huge menu of models from all different companies. Anthropic, Meta, Mistral, you name it. And yeah, they have their own Amazon models in there too, like Titan. The whole strategy is about providing maximum choice.
Now, this market share data, this is the key to understanding why AWS went with the supermarket strategy. I mean, look at that. OpenAI has a staggering 62% of the market, and they're deeply tied to Microsoft. So AWS made a really smart strategic call. Instead of fighting a battle they probably couldn't win, they decided to build a neutral playground to attract all the other major players.
This supermarket approach, naturally, it creates two very different stories for investors. So now we're going to do what any good analyst does. Assess the bull and bear cases for this strategy.
The bull case is that AWS is playing it smart, positioning itself as the Switzerland of AI. By offering all this choice, they give customers incredible flexibility. And let me tell you, enterprises love this. They're not locked into one vendor. Plus, Bedrock offers really strong data sovereignty and governance controls, which is a massive deal for anyone in a regulated industry. It's a pragmatic, customer-first kind of play. But the bear case raises some pretty serious questions. Does relying on partners mean their own in-house models are just not that great? And maybe more importantly, does this push AWS into a lower margin, commoditized role where they're basically just a reseller? And there's real evidence for this. We're seeing measurable spend leak over to Azure and GCP when customers decide they absolutely need a top-tier model like GPT-4. This quote from Asana's AI director, it perfectly illustrates the strategy in the real world. Just look at the mix. They're using both Anthropic and OpenAI, and they're sending the more complex, higher-value work to Anthropic's models. This isn't about loyalty to a single brand. It's about using the AWS platform to pick the absolute best tool for every single job. That, right there, is the supermarket value prop in action. Okay, so that's the model strategy. Now let's pivot to the second part of this, the hardware. Because AWS's model strategy is deeply connected to its chip strategy, which you can really think of as a very deliberate two-pronged attack on the market.
Before we break down the strategy, just look at this number, 91%. That's not a typo. A customer reported a 91% cost saving on inference just by switching from GPUs to AWS's own custom chips. That number, that's the entire economic engine driving Amazon's hardware offensive.
So here's the dual strategy. It's pretty clever. First, they are selling the shovels in the AI gold rush. They offer the best Nvidia GPUs out there because that's what the market is screaming for right now. But at the same time, they're building their own alternative, custom chips called Trainium for training and Inferentia for inference, specifically designed to be a cheaper, high-performance option. And just like with the models, this dual approach to hardware has some very clear strengths and some pretty significant risks that investors need to be thinking about. The bull case here is all about economics and strategy. The price-performance argument is just undeniable, with customers reporting these huge cost savings. And it's not just a theory, it's driving real adoption. And maybe most importantly, it gives AWS strategic independence, so they aren't completely beholden to a single dominant supplier, like Nvidia. The key risk here, though, is huge, and it has a name: CUDA. That's Nvidia's software platform. It's been the bedrock of AI development for more than a decade. This creates a powerful moat because developers are so deeply invested in it. So the execution risk for AWS is massive. They have to convince a ton of developers to ditch the industry standard and learn their own software, the Neuron SDK. That is a tall order. So, is anyone actually making that switch? Is it working? Well, the data shows pretty significant market validation. You have major AI players, Anthropic, Databricks, even ByteDance, all adopting AWS custom silicon. And these aren't small test projects. These are strategic bets based on real cost savings and performance gains. And this, right here, is the most decisive vote of confidence you could ask for. It's from Anthropic. Their public commitment to use AWS's own chips to build their future foundation models, well, that's a landmark endorsement. It's a signal that a top-tier AI lab believes this custom hardware is good enough for the absolute cutting edge.
Okay, so we've looked at the model supermarket and the two-pronged chip attack. What's the final verdict for investors? Let's synthesize all this data. Let's go back and give direct answers to our two core questions. On models, AWS definitely offers the choice the market wants, but they don't have the single most famous model themselves. The bet is that choice and governance will win out. On chips, they offer the market standard from Nvidia while building a really compelling economic alternative. Here, the bet is that huge cost savings will eventually chip away at Nvidia's software moat.
And this really brings the whole strategy into focus. See, AWS isn't trying to build the most famous AI car. They're not trying to be Ferrari. Instead, what they're doing is building the indispensable highway system, the roads, the bridges, the on-ramps that all AI cars need to run on. And that leaves us with one final provocative question. In the long run, is being the essential highway provider enough to win the race? Or will AWS eventually need its own killer app, its own Ferrari, to truly dominate the AI era? That's the billion-dollar question for investors to think about. Thanks for watching The Explainer.